Brandon Zabel. Hey guys, Brandon Zabel here, coming to you new with something that it really isn't that new to social media, even the World Wide Web. But I have to piggyback on the coattails because I personally want to be in the top 5%. Let me tell you something. Being at the bottom of 95% of the population in America is absolutely draining. It's crowded. You can't get your way through it. You can't get ahead. How do you do it? And I definitely believe that it's education. Finding a mentor is everything. YouTube is crawling with different people, different mentors, millionaires, motivators, you name it, philosophical people that are wanting you to do better. So I've taken that, and it has really it's changed my life for my wife and I and my family. Just to kind of give you guys my backstory, since this is the very first video that we're going to be doing of many to come, is I haven't always been this way. I came from a very low income family. In fact, we grew up in a trailer park in the middle of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Believe it or not, there is a trailer park in the middle of Oklahoma City. In fact, there's quite a few of them. Mine wasn't the only one. But that goes to say that we didn't really have wealth. My parents both worked for a living. My dad, he was a laborer, a general contractor. My mom was always a receptionist at different jobs. And I remember going through high school, and it didn't really dawn on me until I got to high school that there were people that lived a little bit different life than me. And as a young boy, I questioned, well, how come they get to and I don't? And the answer that my parents came up with is, son, that's just the way that it is. And I don't fault my parents at all for that. In fact, I praise them for telling me things like that. But I think that a lot of people get roped in to believing just that, and that's just the way that it is. But moving on through high school, I started to see that there were, like I said, people that were living a little bit different life than I was. And I wanted that life. Not to say that I was infatuated with greed, but for one, I wanted a vehicle that didn't break down all the time. And I wanted a vehicle with air conditioning. I wanted a house that was big enough that maybe even had a backyard, or that me and my two other siblings could be in and really not even see each other once or twice a day, but, just to spread out and have that space. So I wanted something a little bit different. And it wasn't until about my middle way through high school, one of the very first philosophical notes ever came into my mind. And this was from a family member who's done well for himself. He worked very hard and made his way up to the top 5%. And one day I was looking at his truck. We had been out riding around, and it was just an old truck that was run down. It wasn't really run down, but it was a small truck, and he's a big guy. Give you an example. I'm 6'3", about 235 pounds. He's 6'4", about 250. He was a professional football player. And I said, Uncle, let me ask you, you've got all this money. How come you drive this truck? And how come you're not driving a bigger truck? And he said something that, honest to God, took me about 7 years, maybe even 10 years to figure out what it really meant. But he said, it's this simple, nephew. I have all this money because I have all this money. Now, can you imagine? First off, let's paint it. Let's take a setting here. You're 17 years old. You have the answers to everything, or at least you think you do. I know that my teenager does. He's got an answer for absolutely everything. But at 17 years old, you got an answer. Always come back to somebody and give them an answer. And when he said that, guys, it left me speechless for almost a decade, until I made my way into a position with a company that it was so fast getting into management. It was a major retailer across the country. Everybody knows about it. And maybe one day I'll talk about what company that is. But for now, it was 6 months and I got offered my own store. And the regional manager came in and she said, you can have this store, but you've got to be ready to move in 2 weeks. Now, it was around Christmas time. We worked off of commissions and hours. Hours had been cut. And so had the commissions, and it was Christmas. So what do you do when you've got a poor mindset? You spend all your money and you have no money. So moving was difficult, but I took a giant leap of faith. And within the next 4 months, I made my way to district supervisor. I had 6 stores that I managed, and things were going great. And so at that point in my life, I ended up with what I like to say, he was the best, worst mentor I've ever had, hands down. First off, he really wasn't a mentor, but I took a lot from him on what not to do. And I had never heard anybody, first of all, talk about leadership as much as this man did. It just made no sense to me. I had played sports, but I was the bench rider. Really never had a whole lot of leadership in my life. Never really looked up to a leader until that day when he became the manager and he started talking, the general manager, and he started talking about leadership and what did it mean. And so each and every Monday, we would have a conference call where he would dive into leadership. And the more he talked about what leadership was, the more I realized this man was an awful leader. And I started looking for something new. And it wasn't until about 2.5 years later, a friend approached me with this network marketing company. It was a nutrition company. And she hit me up so many times. She said, "Hey, I think you'll be great at this, with your personality, your desire for fitness. I really think that you'll be good at this. Why don't you come take a look at it?" Well, like most people do, you're skeptics. So I said, "Well, what is it? You just tell me what it is over the phone." And she said, "Well, it's kind of like this pyramid thing." Bam, I shut the door. My mind was closed. You're never going to convince me otherwise. And every time, you guys ever had that friend that calls you all the time to try to get you involved in something that you think is a scheme? Look, I had the same thing happening to me. She's a really good friend, one of my best friends' wives, actually. And every time she would call me, I'd look at my phone and be like, "Oh, crap, it's her." Ignore. Every time. Finally, one day, she sent me a text message. She said, "Look, I just saw you drive down the road. You weren't on your phone. I'm calling you. You better answer your phone." I'm thinking, crap, man, she's got me. So I answered the phone and she said, "Look, I really want you to come take a look at this. Just please, one time, listen. One time." I said, "Fine. If I come and listen, will you shut up forever and never call me again?" Okay, deal. So I go to this opportunity meeting that I'm sure everybody has at least some point either been to themselves or known somebody that has gone to one. But this was a little bit different. I walked in and I saw a few of the guys that I recognized from the gyms, and they were pretty jacked up. And I'm thinking, why are you guys in here? This is like a weight loss thing. I don't know. What is this? And, one of them just said, "Man, have an open mind." And he'd give me a shake. I'm like, "No, dude, I'm trying to gain weight. I know you from the gym. You don't know crap. I know more than you." Very arrogant, very cocky, as most 26-year-old weightlifters are. But fast forwarding through this meeting, I started to see people stand up and they were giving their testimonies. And working where I worked, people would just come in and buy a product and they would leave and they would seldomly return. But here were people that were so just excited about the result, not necessarily the product, but about the result and what this company had to offer. And my mind opened up and I relaxed a little bit more. Even though I was sitting in the back, probably texting, I don't really remember. I really wasn't paying a lot of attention until this guy stands up and introduces himself. And I'll never forget, anybody that goes to the gym, any guy that's into lifting weights, you compare yourself to people all the time. And when this guy stood up, man, I sized him up and down like, man, this dude is jacked. And he's with this company. And he starts telling his story. And for the first time in my life, now not only have I got my uncle's wisdom that doesn't make any sense, but it's still the seed was planted. This guy was talking about how he grew up way out in the sticks, grew up in a trailer way out in the sticks. In fact, both parents were working class. He wasn't supposed to make it. And then to top the cake, he said, "Guys, I'm not saying this to brag or boast because money doesn't make you who you are, but it does define your life. But last month, this company sent me a check for $30,000. I froze. I froze with inside of myself. I thought, what am I doing wrong? Okay, here's a guy who came from nothing, wasn't supposed to make it, and here he is making 30 grand a month. That just blew my mind. And after the meeting, I walked up to him. I was like, "Well, what do you got to do? What is it? Tell me. Is there a Kool-Aid I got to drink?" Which I guess there kind of was a Kool-Aid, the tea. But I asked him point blank, "What do you have to do? How do you do it? Man, I'm making 3 grand a month for a different company doing the same thing that you're doing. What are you doing?" He said, "Well, have you tried any? Did you get a shake yet? Have you tried it?" "No, I haven't." "Well, I tried the product and I didn't want to tell him, but I actually kind of fell in love with it." So that changed a lot about how I viewed the products and services that are within a company. This one tasted good. It had the right people. And this guy looked like a real leader. I mean, he kind of commanded authority. So I jumped in. I said, you know what? You're going to be my mentor. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm in. So I spent about 3 years with that company, 3 or 4 years. It was a magical time. I did very well. But God has different things in store for everybody. So whatever you're in right now might not be what you're supposed to be in. Just understand that, please. God is working through you. And if you allow him to just open you up, he can do some big things. So roundabout way, ended up in the insurance industry. I loved it. You know, I could really buy into it, coming from this other company, coming from that supplement company to this insurance company. How can I compare the two? Well, one, I was helping people get healthy. And in this company, I was helping people free up money by saving them home and auto. That was great. I could really tie emotion to that by saying, listen, if you just give me a chance to run a quote, if I can't save you money, no harm, no foul. But if I can we talk further? Sure. On average, I was saving about $100 a month, which I thought was really cool. Finally, one day, this God was starting to shut this door because he had one open down the hallway for me to walk in, and a man with another company called and he said, "Hey, man, I really think that you should check this out." Same thing. Like, dude, I don't know, man. I just got out of one of those. I don't want to get back into it. I finally found my career. He said, "No, I don't think you have, because your life isn't over. You're young. You need to check this out." So I did. I went and I checked it out, and for the first time in my life, again, now things just keep happening, he asked me one question. He said, "What does your financial future look like?" What do you mean? He said, "Well, what's your written plan? How are you going to get there?" I said, "Well, where?" He said, "No, I don't think you're understanding this question. Like, do you have something wrote down that says the exact day that you're going to retire and the exact day that you're going to be a millionaire?" Absolutely not. I didn't have that. And so throughout the next 2 hours, he showed me how to become a millionaire. I thought, there's no way. I'm a 95%er. I'm not supposed to be here. Although, thank God that I had spent 4 or 5 years studying people like Jim Rohn, John Maxwell. I knew it was possible. I just didn't know exactly how, because nobody had sat across the table from me and wrote it down and done this with math. I think that was the biggest change in my life, was seeing the numbers finally line up. This is how I'm going to do it. It's not going to happen by me making $1 million a month. It's going to happen by me saving $10 million. Listen to that. It's not making $10 million. It's saving $10 million. The wealthy mindset is something that we can all obtain. We can all acquire, but where are we putting our information? Where are we putting our time and efforts into? Is it on that box that's up on our mantle, or in a beautiful cascade of bookshelves? Maybe it's just sitting on a couple cinder blocks. Maybe you're just not there yet. There's a lot of people. Let me go back to my first bachelor pad. I'll never forget it. This is this might resonate with somebody. My first bachelor pad, we had 2 recliners, one on each side with a mini fridge in the middle and a huge big screen TV out in front of us. And I think the stereo even was a hand-me-down that we picked up at Goodwill. But you know what? We could rock the house, and we could play Sega. We could play Nintendo. Some of y'all like Sega, Nintendo. What's that? Look, I'm a little bit older. I'm in my 30s, but that's neither here nor there. So I came from somewhere. Look, it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you see yourself, and are you willing to do what those Tony Robbins have done, what those John Maxwells have done, what those Les Browns, the people in this country who really had nothing that moved up to something and are millionaires. So saving, writing stuff down, having a goal. Guys, I promise, if you subscribe to my channel, if you follow these videos, I think that we could all learn something from each other. Whether you are wanting to pour into me so that we can change a lot of lives, or you're genuinely just wanting something better, I promise, subscribe to these videos and I won't disappoint you. My name is Brandon Zabel, coming to you live. Wait for more. Please send your comments, your feedback. Share my videos. We'd like for these to get out as fast as possible. If not, just tag one of your friends that you think should hear these. But things that we're going to be talking about as future progresses is getting out of debt. Nobody wants it. How to save a lot of money, not just how to put in the savings account, but really on how to cut back expenses. And I'm not talking about don't stop drinking your Starbucks. Look, if you got to have your Starbucks, you got to have your Starbucks. There's other areas that you're already spending money in that you can save money on. and a lot of other great things, even your credit score, credit cards, investments later on down the line. We're really going to get into some great financial topics. But until then, guys, keep the mindset right, mind open, and hope for a change. Brandon Zabel, subscribe to me now.